Hey, look at that. Okay. All right, so yeah, great to be here. Love this event and just honored to be here. So thank you to the staff and thank you to all the volunteers and sponsors and all that stuff. So, all right, so we're going to talk about mentorship and, could we be able to restart civilization if everything were to, go to shit? Kind of seems like we've seen some of that. All right, so we seem to have this fascination with dystopian thrillers. They often kind of come in you have your adult action films, adult fiction, you have young adult fiction, you have the movies, the TV shows. We kind of get inundated with them on a constant basis. Who's kind of a fan of dystopian? Everybody's just yeah, yes, all right. And we all have our favorite ones. Not sure what that. We all have kind of our favorite ones. We have some that tend to go on for over a decade. Others tend to just kind of be a flash in the pan. Some kind of are deep, they're dark, unsettling, and then others are kind of take that comedic twist. And just to note, other than the fact that Shaun of the Dead is the best of them all, that's really the end of the talk. Thank you. No, but iZombie, if you haven't seen it, the first few seasons are comedic gold, and I highly recommend them. I am not sponsored by them, but I probably should at this point. But they all do kind of generally come with this premise humanity sucks, and here's what could happen if we kind of continue down this path, which kind of seems to have culminated in the bottom right there recently. Or they kind of come in this there's this traumatic or this catastrophic event, and let's explore the possible view of how humanity might respond from such a thing. But I think we all could agree that there's nothing better than the apocalyptic work from the genius author Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Amazing if you haven't seen it. Again, I highly recommend it. It's just so terribly, fantastically good. Seen it probably 4 or 5 times and gets better every time. But one of my favorite shows was this show called Revolution. I don't know who all saw it. It was only 2 seasons. Evidently not enough people because it kind of ended on it could have gone on and they kind of left you hanging. But it kind of started with this idea that there was some event, an EMP, global EMP knocks off all of the electricity to the entire world. So everything that we know runs on electricity. So that means nothing works. And it didn't come back. So that was the first bit and kind of sets, that was year 2027. So we know what we have to look forward to. And then overnight, the entire world just gets thrown back 140 years to where there was no electricity. And then jump forward about 15 years to the natural evolution of how we use Toyota Priuses. Ultimately, when they stop working, is we set up gardens inside of them and, kind of saw how just society evolved. It just kind of took a view into that. It was fascinating, but like I said, not everybody probably liked it as much because it, didn't continue on. But I do kind of love the philosophical and the sociological view that all these kind of shows and books give us around exploring their ideas of humanity. But have you ever kind of stopped to think this? What if everything we knew just stops working and we had to kind of start from scratch, start with what was left? Could we do it? Does anyone else have that morbid thought? Okay, so a few of us are probably demented like me. I'm probably going to start a support group. This will be the part of it. Hi, I'm Jeremy Meiss. I am Director of DevRel and Community at Circle CI. You can follow me on the Twitters. I apologize in advance for anything that I might say, but you followed me. Or you took the choice. All right, so over the past few years, though, we have seen, experienced something that none of us in our lifetime ever had. The pandemic that we're still experiencing effects of, and many are still dealing with. It just brought about this kind of complete lockdown, changed how we view our lives, our jobs, families, friends, and more. And during this time, I was in a group chat with a number of friends. Not really that many. This is stock photograph because I don't have that many friends. But the topic came about just kind of shooting the shit at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, could we start civilization from scratch? Could we, like, do we have those tools to do so? Is it, the instructions, the skill sets? Have we kind of been training people to do those things? Do we have all the resources? And so kind of got me down that rabbit hole of kind of thinking about it, doing some research, seeing what other people had said. Seems like there's actually a fair number of people have gone through this. Book by Lewis Dartnell. He talked about, like, it was called The Knowledge, How to Rebuild a World from Scratch. And he talks about all the crucial bits of information that a group of, people or, survivors in a post-apocalyptic world would need to have in order to survive. And that, if it were ever to be, collapse, everything they would have to have. And then friend Quintessence Onks kind of pointed me to this study by the Long Now Foundation that they started in 1996 to foster kind of this long-term thinking, where the author went down, their own rabbit hole of trying to, look at civilization this way. Explored, some of the learnings that Thomas Thwaite had gained from trying to build a toaster from scratch in 2012, which is common, without any real skills, just tried to build it. And he, smelted the ore, coaxed the plastic out of, the oil and such, and got a prototype that worked for about 30 seconds, which is that down there in the right. He actually has a great TED Talk around this, so I definitely recommend checking that out. But the Long Now Foundation also kind of set out to create this manual for civilization. And they started a library/bar/event space, put it in San Francisco, which evidently is what you do. It has to be multi-purpose, a bar, event, and a library all together. And they collected over like 3,500 books, all into one place. And all of them were like most essential to sustaining civilization, into a place in San Francisco that just happens to have a history of fires and earthquakes and such. So it doesn't really feel like disaster recovery was on there. Might recover from civilization, but not, keeping all those things ready. The single point of failures, it's really not a good idea for civilization. But, how did we get to where we are? I think is like the question that kind of then jumped out at me. Like, how did our ancient ancestors pass on the things that they were learning? How did everybody know? How did we get to, ultimately standing up here in front of a laptop that's connected to a projector and we all see it? Long before we had like Wikipedia or the Encyclopedia Britannica salesperson, which those of us that remember buying this Encyclopedia Britannica, like one volume, but before then, ancient peoples had this thing called orality. Now, before writing really became like this thing for many cultures, we had, it's called orality. It was the first, and in many cases still, for some civilizations, it's really the most widespread form of human communication. It's that thought and verbal expression where, literacy is unfamiliar to most of the population. It also really gave us those stepping stones that allowed us to, get to where we are today. Was a necessity for the growth of really any civilization. And it's that function of sharing the information that really has helped cultures continue to advance on how to hunt and plant and navigate, et cetera. It's also, hearing from the group of tribal leaders, the stories of, the generations past, passing on those customs that kind of shaped lifetime, and then that you ultimately will pass on as well. And in the ancient world, that took the form of, like the Iliad and the Odyssey was a form of passing that on. Beowulf, the modern world also has, the short stories and songs that the Aboriginal peoples in Australia, they actually use to navigate their country. But eventually, once things began to start to be written down by that form of preserving information, it gave way to what we call now like oral tradition. And that's that recall and sharing of specific texts and cultural knowledge verbally. It's like sitting around the campfire with your grandparents, hearing them relate their early days working in the fields in Nebraska. It's taking a ride in an old pickup truck with your grandfather to find that that perfect trout run in the mountains of Colorado. It's how to survive those Colorado avalanches, how to hike in Colorado. Especially my wife, who grew up in Colorado, would call it like how to not be a non-Coloradian. Yeah. If you've ever been, you understand. But as societies became, predominantly more written and, textual in the ways that they shared information, there emerged kind of other ways of passing on trades and job functions. So in some cultures, societies, if your father was a blacksmith, you would become a blacksmith as well. If your mother made tapestries, then you probably would as well. Everything revolved around the family business, and if your family didn't have one, there was always the need to pass on those trades to other willing persons that wanted to become a blacksmith or wanted to become, working with tapestries and whatnot, be masons and whatnot. If they didn't have kids, always looking for somebody that would build apprenticeship. And that was kind of this next way that kind of came out of how to share and build trades and how people would learn and continue on. Now, Eric Desk, who's here, in the last Monktoberfest, 2019, he actually kind of talked about some of the same subject. He also talked about the companions of Devore, who, they were some of the great artisans and craftsmen in the 18th century, 18th and 19th, that were influenced by kind of the French fraternity idea. That term kind of comes from the Latin companion, which really just means one who shares bread with another. So they were before they could become a companion, the children were sent off to kind of apprentice for sometimes like 10 years with a master in order to learn just the basics of that craft or trade. After they become proficient in in the basics of that, they then would embark on this long kind of journey throughout France, which literally they would call a Tour de France, learning the more advanced, specialized aspects of that chosen trade from the masters who were there. And they would later become just known the companions of the Tour de France. After they learned from those masters, then they would kind of spend a year working on a dissertation of sorts, where they would then present in front of the masters for that trade, so that they could show that they had become a master themselves of that craft. So it's kind of where we get our master's programs and dissertations comes from that. All right, now this is where really I kind of have to step back and say I don't really believe that through apprenticeship or even really mentorship are we going to be able to really rebuild civilization itself from scratch. Alexander Rose, who's the executive director long now, put it this way, is after the fall of all of the great civilizations, the Egyptian, the Mayan, the Roman empires, we had the evidence and examples of everything they had done and all those achievements, but all of those aqueducts, all those Senate buildings, and all that beauty that they had created, it was worthless because the society around it was not there to maintain it, contextualize it, and protect it. And so, I think it's important that mentorship and apprenticeship is really where we can begin to maintain and contextualize and protect the cultures necessary to be able to rebuild our civilization. I don't feel like that's possible, but I do believe that it is how we preserve the cultures within our organizations, which build up the societies around us. And so I'm going to kind of dive into kind of what does mentorship look like from that perspective. Before I go too far, there's this view of coaching and there's this view of mentoring. Coaching is really there is a distinction. Mentors are those that they give you advice. They're going to kind of help you navigate through your career, usually for kind of the long haul instead of just that short-term kind of flash in the pan. They become that sounding board. They're going to share their experiences. And then walk with you as you go through that. But a coach is really they literally just coach you. They take how you perform in a given situation, and then they give you those suggestions like constructive criticism for achieving better results on a thing that you've done. But it's usually a specific goal, and it's for a short term to achieve that goal. So recently, a few months ago, I started a Twitter thread asking for those that had been mentors or who were mentees to kind of share their stories, share how they all of their wins and their failures and the things that they had learned through being a mentor or being mentored, and kind of the words of advice they have. And so I wanted to take those and use to kind of build some really good contextualized ways we can mentor or be mentored. So the first kind of step, kind of some of those practical things for the mentor. Rachel kicked off a great thread, had a number of really great nuggets, but the first one was, just really understand the why. Understand why you want to be a mentor. Understand what it is that you bring to the table that you possess. And if you don't have that knowledge that someone's asking you to help them with, be honest about it. It's going to be better for both of you if you at least know what you can and cannot bring to the relationship. Jason said that it is hard sometimes to identify how a mentee learns, but it is essential in order to be able to give them the tools and to give them that journey along with you to make sure that they're able to figure it out. Determine what's needed is definitely that challenge. Rachel, Tamimi, and Dan here, they all kind of touched on this point that making sure that there is a timeline and an outcome set. Like, you just don't want to have very open-ended, hey, just be a mentor. Okay, cool, let's go grab coffee and shoot the shit on something. Like, that's part of it, but there needs to be this timeline and outcome that you both want to see from it, so you both know that you're getting what you need out of the situation. Rachel, again, had some good things like the key steps when you're setting up meetings with your mentor is, first set the focus topics, which move you towards that desired outcome that you want to have. And then also recapping what was discussed and learned after each session. And then also there was kind of the thought here, kind of keeping a shared doc of your meetings, notes in progress. So that you're able to kind of track it all, so you can always reference back to, hey, we discussed at this point. There's always that reference point you can come back to. But always leave on good terms. Be kind on your way up, because you're probably going to meet again on your way down, was how she put it. There was also great advice from Gareth and Beth here that really touched on, it's something for both mentors and mentees, that it's okay to not know. It's okay to say, I don't know about that, but let's work together to figure that out. One thing that Gareth said here was just things you remember telling her during one of the first meetings was that it's perfectly acceptable to say you don't know something, especially during an interview. But also say, but I will go find out and I'll get back with you. That kind of a process really helps both the mentor, but also the mentee to learn how. It's kind of modeling that behavior. But also, it helps you kind of normalize, to say, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. Which we all have those moments, and I think it's okay to say that, either whether you're a mentee or a mentor. It's really normalizing that idea that it's okay, and that's how we learn, when we accept it and when we speak it. Going back to what Corey said yesterday of just having those failures really helps shape who he is, and being open about that really kind of sets a standard for the mentee relationship. Cecilia here kind of talked about some good steps for making sure that we're shaping the decision-making process. We're not really making robots, because using questions to get there. Helping somebody get around the biases for knowledge that you or even they might have kind of helps understand their thought process and kind of helps identify the different gaps in their thinking and your thinking as well. Heidi had a really great point here that you can't tell someone to not do this stupid thing that I did, but you can tell them what worked for me to fix that. It goes back to kind of the robot thing. You don't want to tell people how to respond in a situation. Just let them know, here's what I did when I fucked up. Here's how I'm going to be there for you as we figure this out. Beth, who had a lot of great thoughts throughout the whole threads, said that, pairing with a mentee, thinking out loud, trying the wild ideas, failing together, debugging together, all of those things really kind of help build that relationship, but help you both learn, and is important for mentorship. If we don't do those things, if you're not doing all that together, then, I dare say, what's the point? But Beth, again, said, model how to get others promoted. It's important showing how you're helping them and how you help others, and really lifting others up. Really kind of gets to the point of, mentor, you're continuing to help others, giving them the tools to be successful. One of the final things that Beth had in that whole piece there was, you really never stop learning. That when you are in, whether it's in tech, doesn't matter, whether you're a baker, whether you are driving trucks, you're always learning something new. And so being open about that and show that and let them experience it with you really helps build that up. Less experienced engineers definitely have plenty to teach and share. And so just because somebody might have more technical experience doesn't mean you can't learn from them. So point out when you've been taught something new. Also, it's important to encourage them to give talks, whether it be a lightning talk, which is a certain skill set in and of itself, or give conference talks, write blog posts. Encourage them to share what they're learning. And if they're interested in doing the things at conferences, make those introductions, help get them there. Because as we share what we learn, it helps us to kind of really ingrain that deeper, and also help someone else along the way. Okay, so some of the things that people had to say about if you were a mentee was coming prepared for what you want to learn, the questions you want answered. David mentioned make sure that preparation happens, because it helps you both know how you want to improve, how you feel they can help you, but it also means that you're not wasting each other's time as you go through that. Again, Beth had some great takeaways for white males. Using our inherent privilege that society has given means we need to invest that time into underrepresented and marginalized folks, not just women and people of color, but also, she mentions ex-incarcerated folks, first-gen college students, or those who didn't even go to college, single parents, etc. The point being, making the industry more diverse and representative shouldn't be a burden that the diverse and underrepresented should bear themselves. And then for non-white males, Beth also encouraged, seeking out those that have a similar background. The importance of, having that special kind of community and kinship, and the vulnerability that comes with that also, is immediately present with those who are more like you. And so, really stepping into that that community as well. So another thing that all of those that kind of answered the survey kind of talked about was, mentorship wins and failures. Dan was really clear about learning that you can't really mentor someone to success. You can, try everything possible, but sometimes it just doesn't work. That could be a mismatch with personality, could just be not a good situation, but sometimes it just doesn't work. But also, Jason here talked about, remembering people are humans with feelings and personal lives, which will impact the way that they are learning, impacting the way that the work that they do, their performance, any given time or over a period of time. And so understanding that and using that as is really a tool to mentor and be mentored, is just to be aware of that. We are humans. All right, so some of the takeaways from all of the things I looked through and the conversations I had with people through the Twitter thread was, being a lifelong learner is important. If we embrace that ourselves, regardless, it's going to give us a much better situation to be a mentor or to be a mentee. Ben touched on, we said earlier, is it's not always the older to the younger. Younger engineers, younger people working in communities, younger, whatever that might be, they also have something to teach older or more experienced, engineers or people in the field. And so it's important that, it can be up and can be down, but that, good advice can be had either way. Making yourself available, because people are always looking for mentors. And, here's one that somebody had said, hey, how do I know how to find one? I've always wanted one. Recognized as a mentor when it's time to pass the baton. Make a connection for that mentee, whether that's to another mentor, or that's to help sponsoring them to other people or to companies, which moves into kind of this idea of sponsorship. There is a definite distinction that's placed or that's been made between what a mentor is and what a sponsor is. Laura Hogan, who's a tech management coach and trainer, kind of separates them in two ways. Mentors are those who give you helpful advice, and sponsors are people help you find new opportunities and improve the quality of your work. And the difference in how a mentor approaches a situation like speaking at conferences is definitely like, the mentor is, hey, have you tried speaking at this, or have you tried doing it this way? A sponsor says, hey, I recommended you specifically by name at that conference. There's a different way of approaching it. One can have much more value for the person that you're trying to assist. Scott Hanselman at Render 2022 this year kind of described this in the way that mentors really are that mirror that help you define your dream, strength, and advise you and guide you along that path. But a sponsor really acts as a spotlight, like they're creating luck by lifting others into new spaces. And then John Allspaw says, if you're a senior, staff, or principal, or a distinguished engineer, you'll do well to think and remember that mature engineers lift the skills and expertise of those around them. But Laura took it even further, saying that mature teammates lift the skills and expertise and names of those around them. Name them, be in meetings, talk about them. Make sure people know the names of the people that you have been mentoring and that you're trying to help get to that next thing. Speak about them often. Kate here said that mentors give her perspective, but sponsors give opportunity. Both are helpful, but there is a definite distinction. Laura kind of had some final thoughts on sponsors and mentors, said that marginalized people are over-mentored and under-sponsored. The importance here is using what we, as a mentor and helping sponsor somebody into that next level. There's plenty of opportunities, but they're just not getting there. So kind of the final thing, do I think that mentorship is going to save us from the next zombie apocalypse that's going to come and try and destroy our backyards, eat all of our watermelons and everything? No. But do I think that mentorship is essential for us to help shape kind of the next generation of developers and operators and people in tech that have the best opportunity to shape the culture of our organizations in the years to come? Yes. So with that, I do want to thank everybody that kind of contributed. There's a few here that David and Heidi that are here, but this long list of people that contributed to the conversation around mentorship. And just definitely follow them. I will have the slides, I'll tweet them out here shortly, sometime today, that you can go back and you can look at these specifically so that you can also follow them and learn from some great leaders in the space. So thank you.